Couple of days ago, I released a demo for Rome, which had you conversing with your past self as you worked in the present. Now, there was a lot of positive response to this demo, and I realized that there is a lot of value in Rome being able to help you out in the present with all the stuff you've gathered in the past, and I decided to explore it further. So I spent the last 3 days creating a lot more of an extensive demo building upon the ideas and feedback of the prior demo. Now, before we start, a couple of big ideas to understand is that one, Rome has bidirectional links, and this provides powerful ways with which humans can interact with information. And Rome has already explored the space, pretty greatly and built out a ton of cool features that let you do this. But it's important to understand that while you add these bidirectional links, you're actually also adding semantic tags at the same time. And semantic tags allow machines to interact with information in powerful ways. And today, that's what I'll be exploring. And by doing so, there's two areas in particular that are of great importance. The first one is creatively reusing old knowledge, and the second one is collaborative sense making at scale. And these are the two areas that I've been inspired to explore by some of the work done by Dr. Joel Chen. Okay, so what we're first going to start off with is Rome I, meaning Rome Interactive. Rome I is for reusing old knowledge. And basically, Rome I is built on the idea that as I'm working in the present, Rome I is my past self, which is going to help me out work in the present. It's kind of like cloning a version of yourself to be your personal assistant, which is basically the best type of assistant. It's kind of like Jarvis, but without any fancy sci-fi technology. All of it's enabled by semantic tags and queries, and we can do it today. And the really special thing about Rome I is that even if you're the only user of Rome, if Rome has one user, it's still extremely valuable. Normally with software, it's only valuable if you have lots and lots of people. With Rome I, it's extremely valuable even if you're the only user. And second, the more and more you use Rome, the better and better Rome I will get because there will be more and more content for your past self to work with. So now let's see Rome I in action. So right now, I'm in an empty block, meaning I'm in idle mode. Idle mode gives me two popovers, the white popover and this gray background popover. The gray background popover is interactive, meaning that based on the way I act to this block, the behavior will change. So all of these blocks, they are conditioned to use spaced repetition, which is basically an algorithm that makes sure you remember something forever. So I can click on it and I can say, red or green. Okay, I remember it. It's top down. I remember the answer, so green. All right, great. So this is an interactive spaced repetition box. And all of these over here are blocks that have been conditioned to show up based on recurring dates, right? So this block, it's every 2 weeks on Monday, ending April 30th, always have this block. This block, every single week, every single day, ending March 20th, always have this block. This is a to-do item where basically every single week on every single Monday, show me this block until this to-do is done. So I can click on it, and as you can see, it's not interactive like here. It's just a simple reading block. And okay, it's Monday morning, so my Monday morning block has automatically appeared, and I can just copy it over. Now, I can do this type of stuff for if I want to add templates, right? Every Monday morning, like I just did with my English class notes, pull it up. If I want to have repeating tasks, if I want to have notes over a date range, if I want to remind myself of to-do items without overwhelming myself, all of these things can be covered by recurring date-based conditional blocks. Now I've started to write in my blog, and as I'm writing, I'm talking about existential crisis. I'm getting a couple of things here. This is the writing mode of Rome I, and what I'm seeing in this white pop-up is every single block in the past where I've been talking about the existential crisis. Right now, it's not that useful because I've talked about it so many times in the past that it's just not that useful. This row over here, these are all some bidirectional links that I use often whenever I talk about existential crisis, and these are all direct links. Well, these are all indirect links that might be relevant to existential crisis. So if I went on my existential crisis page, all of these would show up in the blocks underneath direct links, while all of these would show up in the blocks underneath indirect links, right? So, okay, I'm going to continue writing. I've added a couple more things. Now, as I'll notice in my block, it's become a bit, there's less things in it because I've only had this thought, once in the past. But you'll notice I also have this blue highlight block. What that means is, okay, if we look underneath, so in this white block, it says March 1st, 2020. That was the page number for this block. But underneath this block, the blue highlight block, it says every time Robert Pirsig and existential crisis. Basically, what that means is this is a block that has become conditioned, where it's been given the condition that any time I talk about Robert Pirsig and existential crisis, always pull it up, right? So this is knowledge gardening. So okay, so any time I talk about Robert Pirsig and existential crisis, this block will always show up. So the really cool thing about this is like, one, it's got a low floor. Even if I don't create any conditional blocks at all, Roam I is automatically of great use to me because it's telling me all the times in the past that I've had similar or the same idea, and it's giving me all these things like all the different topics that are often associated with what I'm talking about. So even if there's no condition, it's extremely useful. But I can add a bunch of conditions, so certain blocks come back based on recurring dates, or certain blocks come back when I'm talking about specific things. But for now, let's expand this. Okay, it seems like I've already talked about what I'm currently talking about, so I'll just, I'll block reference it over. Maybe I'll explore this topic more so I can expand it. Now I have a regular sidebar. I can view my mentions, and it's, just like how it is. So now let's talk about Roam E, meaning Roam External, for collaborative sense making. Basically what we're dealing with here is machine sense making. For machine sense making, you have to add semantic metadata to blocks. Now, having humans attach semantic metadata is quite expensive and unscalable. But by creating bidirectional links, which humans are doing regardless because it's helping them interact with information, we can actually use those bidirectional links and treat them as semantic metadata, and this allows for machine sense making. And machine sense making can make collaboration a lot easier. And if you compare this to most other collaborative platforms, because they don't use semantic sense making, they're already quite inferior to what Roam could allow. And this is what would really allow Roam to flourish as the number of users increases. So let's get started and see Roam in action. So first off, again, I'm currently not typing. I'm in an inactive zone. So this is the Roam E idle mode. We can see two popovers. The top is static and the bottom is interactive. Now let's take a closer look at static. So I see 3 blocks, okay? And these are actually notifications I have. And these notifications, if we just take a closer look, the first one says, coronavirus from Michael, Michael. The second one is side 211 from Sean. And the third one is Zelak. Now, okay, basically what this means is, anytime Michael writes a blog in which coronavirus is present, and that block is shared to a group in which I am a part of, I want a notification. Anytime Sean writes a blog about side 211 and shares it to a group in which I'm a part of, I want a notification. And anytime Zelak writes a blog about anything and shares it to a group in which I am a part of, I want a notification. And the reason you have this is because, okay, first, you want to be able to, you want to make sure that you don't just get notifications from a bunch of people who you know, right? Maybe there's only a handful of people from everyone you know that you actually want notifications from. But more so, there might be a thing where you only want notifications on certain topics from the people you know, right? So maybe I'm working on a project with someone and I only want notifications on that project. I don't want the rest of the things they write about, right? So you can have a lot of fine control over your notifications to make sure your notifications are actually useful and don't get bothersome like they usually do in applications where you have a lot of content like Facebook. So okay, we solved the notification problem. Now let's expand this block. And once again, we can just take a quick read. I think this is pretty useful, so I'm just going to import it into my own Roam by dragging it in. Now you can notice this looks different from other blocks. One, it has a blue background because it's read-only, right? I have the name of the author, Sean, and I have this red pin over here. And this badge, it's actually telling me the difference in versions. So I have a version that he shared, and then he made changes to it and then created a new version, and I'm actually one version behind. So this lets me know how like this lets Sean continually update and edit his work, but it's still immutable to me. So when I base my work off of this, I don't have to worry that if he changes his work, I'll no longer have access, right? I'll still have the copy that I originally imported, and I'll also know how many versions I'm behind. So if I want to, I can later on really easily update it. Let's say I want to add a comment. How do I add a comment? Just add a child bullet. So I added a child block to the parent block, and before that, I added this line over here called comment A. So if I didn't add that, then by default my comment is set to private. If I add this, then my comment is shared to the author. But instead of A, I could put in the name of a group of people that I want to share it with. Now, okay, some time has passed by and there's a notification. Basically, anytime someone leaves a comment on a blog that you have published, you'll get a notification. So since I wrote this blog and I published it to the author got a notification. The author made a comment to my comment, and thus I got a notification. I can expand it, and I can see this was the initial blog, this was the comment I left, and this is the comment he left back that is shared with me. I think it's valid, so I'm just going to import it into my personal database. And once again, I'll see that the comments, that he's the author of, all the blocks he's an author of, they look different than the read-only, while, this one I can edit. All right, that's great. Now let's take a quick look at this interactive section. This interactive section deals with long-form content. So in Roam I, the interactive section was about spaced repetition, while in Roam E, the interactive content is about long-form content. So I can click on it, and I'm opening it up. Okay, so in the logic of synthetic biology, turning cells into computers, what I'm seeing here is all of the paragraphs within that long-form content that I have yet to read. Okay, so as I read them, I can just check it off, and it's basically updating how many blocks I now have left to read. So this way I can track and keep control. I can also see all the blocks I've already read. And sometimes what you want to do is you want to know what about a piece of content really excited you or you found to be really useful. So in that sense, I can just look at all the times I've used any of the content from within this long-form content as a block reference. So I can just click on it, and I can see, okay, I've already used one piece of content from this long-form content as a block reference, and this lets me know how I found this piece actually useful in the past. So now let's look at what Roam E behaves like while I'm actually writing and not idle. So I've added, I'm writing, and I'm writing about coronavirus and flattening the curve. So what Roam E is doing is basically searching through every single blog that has been published to me that has both coronavirus and flattening the curve, and I can see the author as well. Now, let's say I want to explore it more. I can just expand and I get this sidebar. Now, okay, the way this sidebar works is a tiny bit different. So I start off with a big picture idea of coronavirus and flattening the curve. Let's say I want to dive deeper into coronavirus. I can expand. Now, okay, once I dive deeper into coronavirus, these are all the blogs that have been published to me that are talking about coronavirus. Okay, but these over here are actually are bidirectional links that are often mentioned with coronavirus. So I can actually zoom in into the problem. Do I want to know about coronavirus and flattening the curve, or do I want to know about coronavirus in Italy, right? So let's say I zoom into flattening the curve. So now I'm actually getting blocks. These are the two blocks that have been published to me that talk about both coronavirus and flattening the curve. Maybe what I can do is I can zoom in again. Maybe I want to look at all the blocks that deal with coronavirus, flattening the curve, and healthcare capacity, right? Or a pandemic. So I can choose because a lot of content might be published to you. There's too much that you want to be able to navigate through that in a way that's constructive. So with this, I can start off from really basic ideas, and I can zoom more and more in to more and more specific idea based on my train of thought. And obviously, you can use RoamI and RoamE at the same time. So just click it, and now they're both active at the same time. Okay, so now let's start looking at the underlying features, the enabling features that you have to create if you want RoamI and RoamE. Let's start with RoamI. The first underlying feature that you should create, now this one's not essential but would be very helpful, is make it really easy to create direct links. So let's say I'm typing, right? As I'm typing, do a quick search of the block and figure out if there's any indirect links in that block. If there is, just highlight them in blue. I can press a shortcut like Control T, and it will automatically turn those indirect links into direct links. This just makes it really easy to link my content as I write without having to remember what things I might have thought in the past are important enough to deserve a link. The second thing, and this is the one that's absolutely necessary, is configuring blocks, right? So in RoamI, we saw that, okay, even if I have no configured blocks, RoamI is useful because it will show me thoughts I've had in the past as I'm typing, and it can also show me a bunch of topics that are directly relevant and indirectly relevant to the topic I'm currently talking about. So even if I don't do configured blocks, RoamI is useful. But with configured blocks, RoamI is taken to the next level. So let's figure out how to do that. I'm going to type a bit. I'm going to add this quick text here with configuration name. Now, if name already exists, that configuration will be applied to this parent block and all of its children. But if it does not exist, then I'm going to get this quick pop-up. Now with this pop-up, I can use it to get all of my conditions. So if I want to remember this forever, I can use this toggle, and that basically applies a spaced repetition algorithm. Now there's two ways I can deal with my spaced repetition. One is just view it, right? So based on the assume I remember it every time you show me this block, so I just view it. Or I can do interactive, meaning that spaced repetition algorithm, but every time I view it, I can check off whether or not I remember it, and it can use that in the spaced repetition algorithm to figure out when to next show me that block. So okay, I can have a memory-based condition, but I can also set a few more complicated and more granular conditions. So one type I can do is a link association. That's something that you'd use for something like knowledge gardening, right? So whenever I'm talking about quality and Robert Pirsing in my block, always show me this block. Or whenever I'm talking about Steve Jobs and taste, always show me this block. So I can use or and as operationals when I'm creating my link association. I can also do recurring dates. So stuff like show me this block every week on Mondays and Fridays and end it never. right? Or ended on this date, ended after 14 occurrences. I can pick other dates. I can say every 2 weeks, etc. There's a lot of control I have with recurring dates. I can basically pick any, any complication of recurring dates with the system. And with this, I can do stuff like if I have templates, right? Or if like every Monday morning, I can also do templates here. Maybe if I type in book or article in my blog, then it could pull up my template I have for taking down book notes. I can also use this for repeating tasks, or if I have notes over a date range, or if I want to remind myself of to-do items without overwhelming myself. So lots of control here. Looking at some of the enabling features that you have to create to make Roam E a possibility. So the first thing you have to do is add the capability to have synonyms for page names. And the reason you want to do this is because once you start working with external sources, a lot of people call the same thing with different names, right? This is the age-old problem with ontologies. So to solve this, we can just go to a page and we can look at all the synonyms that it has. Internet of Things is also connected things, also wireless network systems, etc. And I can also find or add synonyms quite easily. Now the second thing you have to do is sharing. So I'm currently typing, I decide to share with someone, so I type this in, and I type in the group of people that I want to share this blog to, right? So I put in their name. If their name exists, then it automatically shares those people. If it doesn't, then I have to configure that, and this pop-up will show up if name does not exist. I have a couple of choices here. One, I can choose to make it just public, right? Or what I can do is I can send invites to people that that they don't currently have Roam, or that I just have not shared anything to before. But this is over here. All of these are. This is a list of people I have shared things to before, and I can see. Okay, Bob Wick, I have shared things to him as a part of the Side 121 group, part of the Wand group, and part of my Twitter friends group. So, I can select all the people that I've already shared things to in the past as part of another group, or I can invite new people. The third thing you have to do is figure out a way to actually add external sources, right? So now this first part, Web Clipper, that part's a bit debatable, but one way a Web Clipper could work is like, you web clip like you do normally, and then all of that content gets put into a page called reading list, right? And so the name of the article or web page is the parent block, and all the paragraphs are children blocks to that parent block. And this keeps things flexible because now I can also add to reading list by just copy paste blocks into it, or use the web clipper, or I can just delete stuff like I delete normal blocks. So the behavior of reading list is the same as the behavior of normal blocks are. Web clipper just makes it so I don't have to copy paste stuff in. But it's debatable how you want to add external long form content. But accepting shares, that's vital. So let's take a look at how this will work. So we can click here. We can download a web clipper if we choose to make that. But a couple other things, follow. So remember how in the sharing capability we said that you can keep things public? Well, with follow, if I am to type in the email ID of a Roam user, I basically now can any blocks that they have made public, I will have access to. If I look at my invites, basically I can see the people that are trying to share blocks to me as part of a group, right? So Bob is trying to share certain blocks to Side 234, and I am a part of Side 234 according to him. Or this email is trying to share things to me as part of the Cooking Friends group, right? So I can accept them if I want to have access to the publications, but I might also not want to have access, right? So in that case, I don't accept. And the really cool thing with this is like you won't get requests from people that like don't have your email, right? So as long as you just safeguard your email, which a lot of people already do, you won't have spam invites. Um, okay, the next thing you want to do is notifications. So notifications you actually want to configure. So originally, without any configuration at all, the only notifications you would have are comments, right? But how can you actually add notifications? Well, here's how. In the beginning, when you have no other notifications by comments, when you're using, Roam E and you're typing stuff up and you can see all the content on the side, that you have access to, you might decide, okay, Bob constantly writes about really cool things. So, and anytime, Bob posts anything, put it in my notification. But maybe I want to do a thing where like, I want notifications from Bob, but only when he talks about quality or only when he talks about, taste. And I would know that he calls it quality and taste because that's what he's calling it in my Romy blocks that I'm dealing with. So I don't have to guess these links. He's already using them. So I'm just specifying that, okay, in your blocks, you often talk about quality and taste. We'll only give you the notifications of when you talk about that. And when you talk about anything else like NBA, just don't give me notification. Or maybe if I'm working with someone on a project, or if I'm working with someone at school, I can be like, okay, I want notification from Sean anytime he talks about side 211, which is a course, right? So I have a lot of control with how I get my notifications. I can follow anytime they talk about quality. Just give me a no matter who talks about it, as long as quality is in the block, I want a notification. So I can control the bidirectional links. I can control the people. I have an or and command, so I have a lot of control. And over here, I can just view all of my current notification configurations in case I want to remove them. The next thing and the last thing you'd have to do is version control. So, okay, right now, this is just a normal block, and this is the number of block references. Let's say I want to save this block as a version. So I can press Command Save or Command S. Cool. Now I can see I have two versions, for this particular block. It's March 5th. Now we're at March 9th. Let's say I want to change, I copy pasted that or moved that, block here. Now let's just say I want to change it up. Well, I changed it up, but let's say I click here. I can actually view that currently this is my version, but I can see the last time I saved it, this is the timestamp, and this is what the version was. So I can take a look. If I want to use it, I can. Now let's look at block references. So this is a block reference I made on March 6th, where I actually used the original version of that block as my block reference. So that's why I have this red badge. That's telling me I am one version behind the current version. So I can click on it and I can see, okay, this is what I'm currently using. This is the latest. I can click on the latest, expand it. Yeah, I think it's fair. I'll use that instead. So this design demo focused a lot on breadth. We covered a lot of territory. We covered ROMI, ROMI, and all the enabling technology within that. You can find the separate links to each of those, below in the description. And yeah, hit me up on Twitter if you have any feedback or suggestions. I just want to shout out Joel Chan and Cortex Futura for their suggestions and help on V2. Provide any feedback, I'll take into account for V3. But just to note, future versions will not be increasing territory and breadth. Instead, I'll be working within the territory set by this version and just smoothing things out and making the small things, really easy. Thanks for watching.